Welcome to the Holistic Pathway podcast, unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. A brand new video series podcast where we dive deep into the holistic integration of life and business. I am Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Today's chat is with Dr. Michael Bilkis. And Dr. Bilkis is a board-certified licensed physician who left the world of allopathic medicine to help people transform their lives. Through the use of different modalities, including energy psychology, emotional freedom technique, past life regression therapy, and others, he guides his clients to release their emotional wounds, scars, and trauma. Dr. Michael has also interest in the mystical side of life. He has studied with shamans of different traditions, and he offers transformational tarot readings to help people find clarity, direction, and healing. I'm so excited for today's chat, and I look forward to seeing you there. All right, Michael, it's so good to see you. I think we have been connected online, which is how I've connected with so many people. I think we may have met in an entrepreneur challenge. Does that sound right? It's been a few years.
Yes, a few years ago.
I
A few,
know, it's so crazy. And I just love I'm loving this podcast idea because I feel like I'm getting together with friends all over the world, just like we're having lunch, although we didn't bring any lunch, but just like we're having lunch and just catching up. And I think, as I like to see all of us as lighthouses in the world coming together to shine a brighter light in the world, to make positive global impact for the viewers, for the people, but also for each other, because this is, we've been called in to do work that takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to hold this kind of space for people. And I know you've been doing some work with men's groups too, right?
yes, I've been involved with an organization called the Mankind Project, which started 1985 when three men were talking about how there was all this stuff going on for women
Yes.
and all this self-development and healing work and nothing for men.
Yeah.
And so they created a weekend training they called the Wild Man Weekend, which was meant to be a modern type initiation based on the whole mythopoetic movement in the 70s, 80s. People like Robert Moore and Robert Bly, who were all involved in that. Robert Bly wrote a very famous book called Iron John, which is an incredible expose about the grim fairy tale Iron Hans.
Mm,
They created this weekend, and it was meant to be just a weekend experience for men who lived in Wisconsin.
yeah.
And like many things that have great value, it just exploded. We are now an international organization. We're in more countries than I can remember offhand as far as the number, and growing and growing. At least 20 to 30 training centers here in the United States that
I
offer
love
these
that.
trainings and other great leadership trainings.
That is so cool because, and the reason I wanted to mention that is because the first time I'm from Oklahoma and currently live in Arizona, and the first time I heard about the Mankind Project was probably 2016, maybe, when I was in Arizona, and I loved it because I am a mom who has a boy who his father, the father of my children, was killed in 1997. And so he's primarily been raised with a mom as a role model. And I have found that many of the male clients that I've had often have not had a lot of male role models as well. And or you've got people who are males who are actively pursuing personal development or holistic type healing and that kind of thing. And there's often women for them to go to, which is great for some, but sometimes they're really wanting that male connection. And so I love one, that as many males as I can get on the podcast that are interested in, making a big difference in the world, that's exciting to me. And then to learn whatever kind of work you're doing in the world. For men, are you working with women also, or are you only working with men now?
No, I work with men and women.
Good. Okay, great. I love that. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear more about the other things you're doing. I know you were doing a little bit of mediumship for a time. Are you still doing that at all?
I do that. It's probably my least developed skill.
Okay.
I feel the least comfortable with,
Yeah.
so I offer it in as opposed to tarot, which I've done quite a lot of.
Yeah.
Um, when I work with mediumship, I'll offer a reading, and if people are finding value, then I'll ask to be compensated for that. But if I'm not connecting at all, I follow there's a British model that says if you don't connect within the first 10 minutes, then there's no charge. So if I'm not providing a value either that I don't believe that's of value or the client, then no love lost. Then we just shake hands and part ways. And we tried because not
Yeah.
everybody can connect.
Well, that's so true. And that's the thing. I think sometimes when it comes to mediumship or comes to a lot of the holistic healing work, even, it's particularly mediumship and psychic type abilities. People, I think, sometimes have the idea that that means you have all the answers, or that you can, connect at will, like you're turning on the TV. And I've tried to help people understand that's not how it works at all. And I have a client who, when we first started working together, she really had forgotten that she had these abilities, like so many of us do. And through the course of our work, and as she began to heal more and more and more, she began being called more to do her gifts. And she has quite a good skill as a medium. However, she hasn't felt as comfortable um, in doing that yet. And she's mainly doing tarot and oracle readings as well. And so it's kind of the same thing. But if something comes to her during the reading, then she'll often ask if it's okay, to share or whatever. And so I love that approach, because I think sometimes that kind of work is it really requires such a spiritual connection. Either you're connected or you're not, because we're channels. We're not, it's coming through us. And so it's interesting. I like that what you've said about that. I think that shows integrity.
Thank you. So mediumship is unlike a lot of the other work, we're holding people's hearts in our hands in such a delicate way. Grief
Yeah.
is such a fragile thing to work with when we're working with people.
Yeah.
And for the most part, people want to know, is my loved one still there?
Yeah.
They feel any pain when they died? Are they happy?
Mm-hmm.
Do they hear me? And the type of mediumship that you're going to see most people do now, we call mental mediumship, which is what's coming into my mind. So I don't see spirits. 99% of mediums don't see spirits. It's not like they walk into the room like you and I are having a conversation.
Right.
It's I'm having a daydream, but it's not my daydream.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm hearing with my inner ears, oh, I just heard something, or I'm getting the idea of something. And we present that. And so, the information comes through, but then the medium has to interpret what is the message and then speak it unedited. So there's a lot involved in mediumship. And
100%. Yeah.
and so if you're going to see a medium, then ensure the medium is what we call an evidential medium, meaning the medium will give you evidence first. Not like, oh, Tammy, I have your grandmother here and she says she loves you and she cares about you. Because unless you really so want to know that I'm talking to her, you're going
Yeah.
to say, how do I really know? But if I
Mm-hmm.
were to tell you that I'm getting your grandmother and she loves to crochet pink blankets and give them away as baby gifts, and that's what she does to everyone, Well, not too many people crochet pink baby gifts.
Exactly.
Blanket, it's very specific evidence. Or,
Exactly.
she loves to cook and name something that like a meal that is not your, okay, so, if someone's Italian, oh, she made sauce every Sunday and served it with meatballs and pasta. That's pretty non-specific. But if I were to talk about a spice that she throws in
Yeah.
that is not your typical spice for sauce, or something that was peculiar about it, then now that evidence becomes much more specific,
100%.
or capture the essence of the person's personality.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have been through a significant amount of death in my life, in this life and in past lives. And so to be able to have someone give me something evidential, as you said, like the client that I mentioned, there was a time where she called me and she was sounding kind of timid. And she said, I think I have a message for you, but I'm not sure, can I share it? And she told me who she thought it was. And I've shared this on one of the other episodes. So I'm not going to share it again because it does get me pretty emotional. But what she shared was a message from my best friend who passed in 2019 and had dementia. And what she said to me, no one else heard. There was no one else around. It was so specific that there was no there was no doubt that the message was for me and the message was from her. And so that was so profound. And it's so interesting, this healing, this holistic path that we come on. We all have gifts that we have forgotten. And some people are more tuned in and they do remember as children, and maybe they're, um, supported. And so those gifts grow. And many of us, they were shut down, or we just move away from them and we forget. And then when they do start to show up, it's a very challenging thing to be able to communicate to someone how we know what we know. And speaking of the clairs in particular, my strongest gifts are claircognizance, which is clear knowing, and clairsentience, which is clear seeing, and or clear sensing rather. And it's really challenging to explain to people what I know or what I feel, because it will just be something I know or feel. And do you find that in the other work that you do too, that you kind of, people want to know, how do you do this? And do you have how are you explaining it?
I'm with you about the claircognizance. Um, the feeling is one of my least developed.
Mm,
35 years as a licensed physician and working and having to deal with people, my shielding is very, very strong.
yeah,
Uh, and I've been spending years now trying to take that down.
yeah.
So, I will feel there are times I can like feel like someone, I'm doing a reading and I ask them what's going on in their lives, and I'll feel a contraction in my chest. And I'm saying, so I'm feeling a contraction in my chest. There's a lot of fear going on right now, or anxiety. And so I'll pick that up. Um, I like the tarot because they give me prompts
Gives you
to go
prompts.
off
Okay.
of. And I like the prompts rather than just do a reading without anything.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we all can do readings without any prompts, and I like the prompts to go. And I'll just start talking. It's
Yeah.
almost as if whatever's coming through is coming out unfiltered. It's just coming down and through. I wouldn't say I'm channeling, because I don't feel like another entity is speaking through me. I just feel like
Mhm.
that information is popping into my brain and coming out my mouth.
Yeah. Well, and I think channeling comes in different ways. Example, I've seen this where people channel and there is uh, a spirit or an entity or whatever and speaks through them, like in the case of like Abraham Hicks as an example. When there are times when I've gone back and looked at videos that I have done, live streams I've done in the past, and I'm amazed because I'm like, wow, how did I know that? Because and I do feel like those are channeled. I was used as the instrument, and the messages were downloaded to me through me. So it is interesting. And on the sensing, the clairsentience, what I feel is often I've learned to connect to what I call is spirit confirmation. And so I will get certain feelings in my body when I know that I'm getting spirit confirmation. And a lot of times what that feels like for me might be a sort of like a whoosh sort of feeling that comes across my body. And sometimes people might call it goosebumps, I call it God bumps, but it's different than getting a chill. It's different than that. It's um sometimes if I'm working with someone or talking with someone and we get in a connected sort of aligned state, then I'll start to feel this wash over me. So it really is challenging to explain to someone what's going on. And then the claircognizance, where you just know what you know. It's like I went through a profound spiritual awakening in 2014, and the things that I knew after that, I have I didn't know them before. No matter how much education I've had, they didn't come from that.
Right.
It's so interesting. And so I was noticing one of the things that you talked about, or that was in your bio, is your energy psychology. That sounds really cool. Tell me more about that. I'm interested.
Oh, energy psychology is a well, not brand new, but it's a fairly new um, branch of healing where we're looking at healing from an energetic and a somatic point of view, meaning involving the body.
Yeah.
Um, there's a very famous biochemist. Her name was Candace Pert, P-E-R-T. She wrote a book, The Molecules of Emotion. She demonstrated and won the Nobel Prize in biochemistry that our emotions and emotional memories are stored somewhere in the body
Mm-hmm.
as molecules, as protein structures. So if you're not doing something that involves the body, it's very hard to release stuck stress, stuck emotions,
Yeah.
emotional trauma, wounds, scars. It's in the body. So if I
Mm-hmm.
just talk about it, it's from here to here,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting into the body. So energy psychology looks at how do we include the body so we can release it. And
Right.
one of the techniques in energy psychology is emotional freedom technique,
Mm-hmm.
affectionately called EFT or tapping. And that involves the cognitive part of talking about the painful memories.
Yeah.
And when I talk about it, I'm bringing that memory up. So it's sort of like queuing it into my software, into my RAM space, like in a computer. I'm bringing
Mm-hmm.
it up. And then when I'm tapping on acupuncture points, it's sending a signal to my neurologic system to let it go, sort of like Elsa in Frozen.
Yeah.
Let it go, let it go. It's safe. I think of it one way as like you have a capacitor, and tapping drains the charge out of the capacitor. And when the charge goes to zero, that memory is no longer creating pain or stress for you. Um, Another way that I often explain the work is any type of emotional wound, from minor phobias to trauma to PTSD like symptoms, is like a computer virus, an emotional computer virus that gets downloaded onto our operating system.
Yeah.
And then stuff happens in the present, and it triggers all those viruses, and I have all these stress reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Rage, fear, anxiety, panic attacks, shame. And that creates reactions where I'm not then living the life I choose or being the person that I would choose to be because it's automatic.
Yeah.
So emotional freedom technique helps to find where those emotional viruses are and through the tapping process, pull them out of the system.
I love that. It's interesting when I talk to each guest is that we all have such interesting missions, and the work that we do is similar and yet very different because we all bring a different pathway of our own into it, how we got from there to here, sort of what got us there. And a lot of my work is very connected, dealing with emotions being at the root and looking at the body as if it's a memory foam mattress, remembering everything that you've ever gone through. And then I'm also in school to be a yoga therapist, and so I have a master's in counseling, and then I work with the subconscious through hypnotherapy and also through yoga nidra, which is works with the energetic bodies, layers of the body. And what's so interesting is people, I think, sometimes think that one session or one technique is going to be the end all be all. And truth be told, I have healed almost all of the complex post-traumatic stress syndrome that I carried for years. And it wasn't until just recently that I even understood the somatic part of things. And so that begins to help understand that everybody's process is a little bit different. What I have come to know is that the biggest transformative thing for me, um, other than the body part of it, was to work with my relationship with things that I've been in, things that I've been through, and changing my relationship to those things and taking my own power back. And so it's fascinating what the different modalities that we each have. And I am curious for you because I know that you went from, and if people aren't familiar with that term allopathic, I often call it Western medicine or traditional medicine. How did you go from that to here? Like what? Because I was a federal analyst. And so, it's like, it's interesting to know how someone says, you know what, I just don't think this is working for me anymore, and I want to do something different. And that's sometimes how we actually do even more healing, is when we recognize we're not aligned with the path that we're here to be on. So what do you
Sure.
think?
Yeah, I agree. It's years ago I joked with someone I knew. I said, my goal is to discover real magic in the world.
I love that.
And I was tongue in cheek at the time. Now, mind you, I would love to discover real magic, but I was a fan of fantasy swords and sorcery novels.
Yeah,
So I was looking for that magic. I've
right.
yet to have someone knock on my door and said, "You're a wizard, Michael. You've been accepted to Hogwarts adult ed program." I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. I think I'm going to wait a while. My journey began around 1991, 92. I was studying martial arts. I had just was board certified in 1990, starting out in the world of private practice. And through a martial art, they started offering meditation workshops
Mm,
and teaching because that was a strong part of the discipline that I was studying. So
absolutely.
I started meditating, and it was helping me with stress. Now, of course, back then I didn't have that much stress. I was young, and I'm 30, 31, it's life is a lot different.
Yeah.
And and it made sense to me. And then shortly after that, a black belt in class said, if you're learning to hurt people, it's good to learn a healing system to help them, to balance it out. And a
Yeah.
friend of us was teaching something called Reiki.
Okay. Okay.
Now, mind you, today almost every other person on every corner of the block does Reiki.
Yeah.
No one had ever heard of it
Hmm.
back then, 1991. I'm a seventh generation Reiki master. My teacher actually went back to Japan and became ordained as a Buddhist priest in the temple that Reiki was discovered.
Yeah.
So when I learned Reiki and then I started practicing remote healing with people and they were feeling better after that, I said, holy mackerel, there's
It's
something
magic.
here that they didn't teach us in med school.
Yeah.
Um, the typical doctor won't believe anything if he doesn't or she doesn't see a double-blind, placebo-controlled study.
Hmm.
I believe what I see with my eyes.
Yeah.
And I also believe that healing is individual. So, everything can be cured and not everything will cure everybody. So it's about having to find the right combination.
Yes,
Well, yeah.
exactly.
So I pursued that. I mean, Reiki, shamanism, became certified in hypnosis.
Hmm.
Um, and it just kept on going. I kept looking for what can I do that makes a profound difference for people.
Yeah.
I wasn't finding it in any of the modalities, but I kept going. And I wrote an article for the in the Journal of American Medical Association on mind body medicine. They did one issue dedicated to that. I think it was 1997.
Mm.
And I'd already lectured at the Advances in Dermatology meeting on reducing stress and on mind body medicine, specifically hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, because
Yeah.
those are the techniques that I had studied at the time. And I was the first doctor, first dermatologist to lecture in a major meeting on stress reduction.
Amazing. I
And it
love
just
that.
kept growing from there.
Yeah. I love that so much because, you know, none of us, we don't know what we don't know, right? And I had been a teen mom and lots of history of abuse and trauma and loss and all of these kind of things. And I had no idea how all of that stuff sitting in my body was deteriorating me from the inside out. I had no idea. And around 2002, I began getting so many diagnoses that I couldn't keep up with it all. And I was in doing my bachelor's degree in that period of time. And I actually did a paper on the mind body connection. And it was brand new to me. I didn't really know what that meant, but it was interesting. So that sort of opened the door and I began to learn a little bit more, but it wasn't until 2010 I had a near death situation in an emergency surgery. And the next year, once I was out of the woods with that, I thought, you know what? I've been through 30 years of traditional counseling. I've had all these doctors, all these prescriptions. I feel like I need something else. And I began being interested in, I thought, meditation. I've heard of that. I don't know what to do with that. And at that time, and still this was 2011, it wasn't that long ago, I was asking around and no one that I knew how to help me. And I ended up finding a Natural Awakenings magazine that I had never seen before. I opened it up and it said mindfulness meditation or meditation 101, learn to meditate. And I was like, oh, this is a sign, it's for me. And when I walked in there, I was terrified. I had no idea what to expect. And that was really well, what I call the four magical pathways to peace and purpose, which is what my journey was. Started with the mind body connection, then with mindfulness, then I recognized mindset, and then the manifesting part of it. Like, how do you take all of that and create a life that you want? And I'm with you. I have so many modalities because what I realized is it wasn't just one thing, it was many things. And each person that I work with often needs something different. And so what tools can I offer that particular person to get them to the next phase of what they want? And also with this podcast, meeting people who are all over the world who do different things with the idea of, hey, if I have someone that maybe needs a modality, maybe I don't have that modality, who do I know that's offering that? Or who do I know that I think could value my client? And that's another thing I think that's important. One that's different in the holistic world is from the traditional medicine world is one, we're not interested in making diagnoses. We don't do that. We're not interested in doing prescriptions. We don't do that. We're interested in really root healing. And then what makes us different from other entrepreneurs is I don't think there's competition with us. We truly are looking for a way to help our person get the healing and the development that they need. And sometimes that's from us, and sometimes it's from people we know.
Yeah, yeah,
What do
and
you
I
think
think
about
that
that? You think
yeah,
that's true?
yes and no. I
Okay,
think
tell
there
me
are
more.
people. I think that there's still people in the holistic world who view competition, who
Yeah,
view that they have to, hold on to their clients.
yeah,
There's a small piece, and then there's a group that says, collaboration is the way to go.
yeah,
That by me sending someone to you because you're the better person for them means that everyone benefits. In the long run, I benefit too. And I believe that. I believe
yeah,
in collaboration. I often joke, particularly on men's weekends, I say we're all one brain with multiple mouths.
yeah. I love that.
So, God is going to speak through all of us, and we all have a different approach. And
Mhm.
what you need is going to be different than what the person to the left of you needs and the person to the right of you needs.
Yeah,
I have to recognize that because otherwise I'm only in it for the money.
yeah,
And mind you, I have nothing against making money. I think it's a wonderful thing.
yeah.
And at the same time, it has to be done in a proper reciprocity that the service that I'm providing is more than equal to the compensation.
A
And
100%.
yeah, and that's important because otherwise I'm out of balance or
Yeah.
the person I'm working with is out of balance. I don't want to be anybody's guru. I don't want you to think that I'm the end all and be all because then you put me on a pedestal
Yeah.
and I know leaders who say, don't put me on a pedestal of sand
Yeah.
because at some point you see I'm human and then that pedestal collapses.
Well, so true. And I think what I do with my clients, and I like to think that other people do too, is it's a relationship. It's a very intimate relationship that I feel so honored to walk with a person. And I, you know, this whole ego thing about thinking that we're the only one or we know everything or oh, I got to hold on to this person, that does not work for me at all. And if anyone is acting that way, I may refer to them as spiritual Steve and spiritual Susie. And what I what I mean by that is they saw an opportunity, decided to jump on a bandwagon, maybe got the t-shirt, but is this really a good fit for you to work with you on something that's so intimate? And the awareness that and I've done some solo videos on this about learning how to discern who is the right practitioner for you versus who isn't, and learning to be so in tune with who you are and what you need that who you're depending on is yourself, your connection to spirit. It's these other people, facilitators or practitioners or coaches or healers. We are here as guides. We are here to assist you in your journey. We do not know all the answers or have all the answers. And I feel like sometimes that I feel a little bit like a concierge, right? Where I know about things and I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I know so and so. Let me connect you with this sort of thing. because my role is to assist the client or the potential client who comes to me to getting what they need, and it may or may not be with me.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens. And the other, God, I had a train of thought that I was thinking about, and the train left the tracks. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not quite sure what I was going to say. Oh, I know what I was going to say now. Yeah, in addition to what I'm hearing, you say is a practitioner doing their own internal healing work.
Yes.
I'm really, I mean, I find it really inspirational how much work you've done from all the trauma that you went through to get to where you're at. And whenever I see you posting another certificate, another course, I'm saying, oh, wow. I feel like I'm looking in the mirror sometimes, but I've reached a stage in my life where I'm not doing as much
Yeah.
as I used to. But it's just really inspirational that you continue to pursue healing,
Yeah.
because there's an illusion or a lie that some people tell themselves that I'm not completely healed yet. And I
Yeah.
don't think any of us will ever be 100% healed. We always carry those shadow wounds.
Hmm.
And the difference is they become quieter and quieter. And when they arise, I could say, oh, hello, I'm not good enough. You're trying to sneak back in my life, but I recognize you. And I'm going to simply say, thank you for trying to protect me. And right now I'm going to let you go again. Go back into the shadows. And so I bring it out and say hello, and then it doesn't affect me as much.
100%. And you know, the healing thing, I have found on my journey that things do actually heal. Example, there may have been something that I was really triggered by for most of my life, and all of a sudden it has no charge anymore at all. And when that happens, I don't even know it's happened until it pops up, and I go, "Oh, look at that." I'm not angry, I'm not, breaking down or whatever, like I'm totally fine. That's when I realize how much work I've actually done. And when I go and do additional training, what I have found is that if I have learned or heard something where I feel like, ooh, I wonder if that offers something that might benefit my client. And so that will prompt me to go take a particular training and see if there's something of value from that, and see if it also helps maybe with any additional healing that I need. But also, I'm always looking for, I like to say, ways to round out the ecosystem of what I'm doing. When I received my spiritual awakening, it was clear but yet cryptic. And what I was told was I was here to empower, motivate, inspire, and transform the lives of others using the stories of my life. I'm like, well, I don't really know what that means. And so I've been, looking to, okay, well, how can I fulfill that thing that I was asked to do? And so every now and then a class will come up, and I'm like, okay, let me see if that adds to it. Oh, a podcast. Okay, let's try that. And it's, how do I show up as the very best version of me for the people who either need my help or the people who are out there trying to do the same? Like, how can I provide value so that we all benefit from it? It's a ripple effect I see, and it definitely had to start internally so that I can then do that as I go. That's so important
Yeah,
to me.
it's uh it's a continuing journey.
So much, yeah.
And we discover, I discovered my issue years ago from all the wounding that I had was rage.
Yeah.
And I used to think I had an anger problem. And while my anger was a problem for others, I didn't have an anger problem. My
Yeah.
anger worked really well because it did what it was supposed to do, which is push people away so that I could protect my core.
Yeah.
And so as I started to let the anger go, I discovered, well, I didn't feel good enough, or I had to always prove myself, or I was unlovable. And
Yeah.
as I've healed those wounds, I don't get angry the way I used to.
So good.
And what's funny is
Congratulations.
you talked about natural awakenings.
Yeah.
So when I was having issues, my wife and I were having issues. That rage was not healthy for our relationship, and I have my wife's permission to talk about this
Yeah.
because my story is true, and therefore it offers hope and healing, I hope, for others. She was looking in Natural Awakenings magazine. She was an advertiser in the magazine. She's a healer herself, and someone was placing an ad offering emotional freedom technique. And mind you, this person only placed an ad for 2 months
Yeah.
or 1 or 2 months in the magazine. So we literally had to look at the magazine, that issue, that page, and call her because the next month it wasn't there.
Mhm.
And it was the emotional freedom technique which turned my whole life around as far as finally getting to the nitty gritty and really helping me. And that's what inspired me to then study it at Omega Center in New York City, in upstate New York, and become then certified as a practitioner.
Well, I think you found the magic, Michael, because that's the thing that we're always thinking we're looking for bibbity boppity boop, with with the wand. And the thing about it is there is magic all around us. We are getting messages all the time.
Oh gosh, yeah. I firmly believe that there's something magical about emotional freedom technique. It's just, when I work with people and they're just tapping and talking, and all of a sudden I ask them how do they feel, and they say, "Oh my God, so much better,"
Yeah.
and how much it changes. And I use some neurolinguistic programming techniques when we get stuck
Yeah.
with EFT, right? I think that EFT could probably muscle its way through a lot, but why spend an extra hour when I can do a 5 minute process with another technique?
Yeah.
And that sometimes is even more magical, the
Well,
way that it
and
works
the
compared to
the
just talking about it.
synchronicities, yeah, the synchronicities though is what I'm talking about with the magic, because you needed to be, the amount of synchronicity that needed to happen for your wife to be, connected to the magazine, for you to see the ad at the right time, for it to be exactly what you needed, and then this is all, that's the magic, and
Oh
that's the
God,
part
yeah.
that people don't often get, and I've done some videos about this too, is that we are constantly getting messages that give us answers, but we don't know how to recognize them, or we dismiss it as being something, oh, it's just a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, and all of these things that really had to line up for you to get exactly what you needed in exactly the right moment. And it comes to you in so many ways.
Do you know what Einstein said about coincidence?
I don't know. What did he say?
Einstein said coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous.
I like that. That's
And and I like to think of it in terms of synchronicity, which to people think coincidence is random,
yes,
but synchronicity is not. And
yes,
I think of synchronicity as God's way of saying, here I am, I'm loving you, I'm helping you, I'm supporting you, if only you pay attention.
yes. No kidding. No kidding.
If only
Yeah,
you pay attention.
I
I
love it.
discovered the Mankind Project. My wife was at a continuing education class. She met a guy who lived a couple of towns over. He does the same thing she does, who'd been involved in the Mankind Project.
Cool.
So for them to take the same course and be on the train together, going home at the same time,
Yeah.
on the same train. And she came home and said, I met this guy. He's involved in this men's organization. You need more male friends because all the spiritual work, I'd be one of two men there and like 90% women.
Yeah.
She said, you need more male friends. You need to go.
Love it.
And that was a synchronicity because I've been involved with the project now 16 years. I was certified as a co-leader in November of last year. And it's just I like to say I'm addicted to miracles because when I go on one of these men's trainings, we call it the New Warrior Training Adventure.
Yeah.
From for the staff and for the participants. So we may have up to 32 participants and 40 to 50 staff members.
Wow.
And I see miracles that happen for like 60 men
So cool.
every
Cool.
weekend. They're miracles, and not just one or two, just huge shifts in healing, not just for the participants, but the staff too. And the crazy thing is, the staff pays to be there. They pay a significant over $100,
Yeah.
125, 150. Now in the Northeast, I saw a staff fee of $200
Mm-hmm.
to go and staff and work your backside off to be in service
Yeah.
and get something for it, which is just an amazing, amazing concept. And I've staffed 34 times now. And
Amazing.
and it's just like I said, I'm addicted to miracles. I love being there. Being a leader, I get to offer now a lot of gifts and a lot of insight that I've received along the way. And I can't think of any better healing weekend for men than the New Warrior Training Adventure.
I love that so much because, again, there's so much out there, but people don't often know it even exists. And I've said that before. I know on my journey, I had no idea what to search for. Like, because you're sort of raised, or many of us are raised in sort of an environment where you hear the same thing, you hear the same model, like something's broken with you, you need to go to someone else so they can put a label on you being broken and give you a prescription, and away you go. And I like to start from the place of you're already whole and complete. And so now, how do we go about getting you to feel that way?
Yeah, you're not
Remember that for yourself.
right. You're not broken. You're programming screwy. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we need, you've been hijacked, and
Yeah.
the emotional computer viruses, these things that society has taught you is good and bad.
100%. Dr. Wayne Dyer was one of my favorite teachers, and he used to call them mind viruses, that we
Yeah,
would. And it's so true. And that's part of the thing about getting yourself to recognize sometimes you can't find the solutions because you have the same programming that you've always had, and it's not showing you anything new. And um, how would you even know where to look, because you're still always looking in the same way you've always looked. And so that's another thing that I'm so excited about, the international part of this particular podcast, because people get the opportunity. Like, where are you coming to us from? You're in Georgia, right?
I live in Savannah, Georgia.
In Savannah. Okay. And so yesterday I talked to someone. This episode will interview, or will come out later. She was coming in from Vietnam. And so being able to talk to people, people start to see that it's not just one person who thinks that way. Like, there are literally people all over the world that may be able to help me find what it is that I need.
Gosh, yes. And even sitting in a local circle, when people tell their story,
Yeah.
and we encourage, like when we sit in a men's circle, if someone says something and it resonates in your life too, raise your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see multiple men raising their hands, hey, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's one of the things that stops a person from asking for help is I'm the only one with this issue. No one will understand it, and there's no way to ever change me. This is who I am. I'm never going to change. And I'm living testament that it wasn't who I was,
Yeah.
that I had some screwy programming. It was causing harm to myself and to my family. I had a heart attack at 48 years of age
Yeah.
because I was so filled with anger, and finally was able to help myself. And so it wasn't who I was. I wasn't an angry person. I'm a loving man. I'm here to help you. I'm here to help. My mission is to help people rediscover their joy and peace and empowerment.
Yeah.
And so I needed to change my programming. I need to what I call reboot my divine operating system.
So good. Yeah.
And
So,
and
so
so,
true.
my thing with the men in the men's organization, I learned it's okay to speak my truth, that they weren't going to judge me. They weren't going to kick me out of the circle if I said something
Yeah.
that I might have judged embarrassing to bring up, say, with my work colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And by speaking my truth and seeing other men speak their truth, I developed a sense of safety. So when I actually found this EFT therapist and started working with her back in 2018, I felt safe enough to get uncomfortable.
Yes. So true.
And healing work is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, here, have some psychedelic mushrooms and ayahuasca, and all of a sudden you're going to feel good.
Uh-huh.
It You got to dive into the sewer of your life and clean it up.
True.
If you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to get comfortable being uncomfortable, it's not going to work.
Well, some important things that you said. One is a lot of us, at least for me, and I know a lot of other people, we tried to get help in the past from other people, and people would harm us, again, reharm us or judge us or whatever. And so for years, I didn't understand the power of group work because in my mind, it was like group counseling or what I used to call cry in your beer sessions, and that's not what these kinds of circles are, what these kinds of group programs are. These are more empowering. These are where we are, yes, doing deep dive healing, and it's a place for people to lift you up, not just like dump your stuff and that's the end. Like there's actually some cleanup happening. So that's an important thing. And just the idea of understanding that there are truly people out there who actually can facilitate and actually create safe space for you to go through what you need to go through. For me, my comfort zone was being uncomfortable. My comfort zone was chaos. My comfort zone was all of these maladaptive type behaviors because that's what kept me safe. And getting uncomfortable sometimes for me was learning how to love myself, was learning how to give myself, allowing myself to receive from other people, and that was uncomfortable.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so interesting. It's like just the things that we all go through for this healing journey,
And
right?
there was a risk for you to start to love yourself.
Oh, yeah.
There's a risk that we are not consciously aware of, that if I heal and
Who am
change this behavior, then something bad might happen
I? Mm-hmm.
because this behavior was adapted as a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
If I don't have the survival mechanism, I could die.
I could. Yeah.
And that often prevents people from seeking help because, they say better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So so people would rather, I actually had a man say, who would come to men's circles for a while. We kept inviting him, are you going to come to do the training, do the training? And finally said, I'm sitting here in the pile of shit that's my life, and I know the way it smells.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it would be like to step out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a quote. And to think that that's how most people think, that at least I know what this is. Who am I if I let go of all this pain? And the beautiful thing is you get to discover who you truly are.
So
And
true. And
and
I
it's
have said,
wonderful. Not You don't get lost. You
there are
get
some,
found.
well, actually, what that man or person said was actually pretty profound because I found there are a lot of people who don't even have that awareness. And instead, they're blaming this one, this one, this one, this one, because my life is in this way. And if I've ever had a client that comes to the awareness that this person has, I will celebrate them and say, celebrate that, because at least now you know where you are and you
Yeah.
can stop spinning around. You can stop blaming people. You can own, this is my shit and I'm going to sit in it. And I said, there's no judgment for that because I've been there. But when you're ready, you know that now there's something on the other side, and maybe I'll dip a toe over there, you know?
And that's what that's what we told them. That's what we said. When you're ready, we'll be here.
Sure. I love it. Well, it looks like we're coming up on the end of our time. So thank you so much for watching the Holistic Pathway podcast, where we have unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. This is Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Join us every Saturday for a new episode. And thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.